This is Python's Paradise. This is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena, straight out of Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, here on March the 9th, 2022. Cold day out there, but you know what? I think we'll go another month of this, and then it's, April showers, as they say. But in the meantime, we're celebrating the 35th anniversary of the storefront, so to speak, what happens after hours in the mall, or in this case, what the mannequins do in the mall. Folks, I had an uncle that owned a video store from 1981 to 1987, and I have a lot of memories of that video store, and closed off in 1988. And I think one of the 1987 was the release of Mannequin, which I know I saw from that store. And of course, Kim Cattrall and various other shenanigans going on in that film. Well, folks, we know true love exists because the janitor happens to find real love inside, buried underneath all the papers and all the trash. And I got that guy on the show with me today, folks. I give you the awesomely talented Andrew Hill Newman. How do you do, Andrew?
I'm fine, man. Thanks for asking me to be a part of this Python paradise.
Oh, you know what? It's an honor. I knew there was anniversaries coming up this year, and usually when I do my show, I like to look at what's being anniversaried and what I need to hone upon. And I was like, okay, Mannequin is definitely one I got to talk about, and yeah, you were the janitor in that film, but before we talk about that, usually, I like to get my guests to give a little bit of their background and how they got into the business, and yeah, like, did you always want to be an actor growing up?
I think I probably did, though I never knew it was an option. That was the interesting thing. I grew up in the suburbs of New York, and I did community theater in the summer times in my hometown, and I did acting in my high school and the drama club, but I never really knew how it was that you would pursue it as a profession. And then when I got to college at the University of Vermont, and I auditioned for a play for something to do, and I first got there and I got into it, and then I met a bunch of other young acting students that let me know that this was a career path that you could study, and so that's what I did. Is I studied theater, and I moved to New York, and I was a theater actor in the 1980s. I was fortunate enough to be cast in a Broadway show in my first few months in town. So I got some encouragement that I was on the right path. And so although it was something I always loved, I can't say I always knew I was going to be in show business, but it made a whole lot of sense once I started pursuing it.
Yeah. Well, what do you think? Mannequin is turning 35 this year. That's a film that's got a cult following right now. What do you think 35 years of for that film? And
And
you being only 39.
Oh, thank you very much, because that was the part I was about to dwell on, which is the fact that I did something as an adult 35 years ago is a bit of just sort of coming to grips with my own aging process. But I sure was happy to be a part of it at the time, because as a theater actor who was desperate to break into film and television, because I had heard that was going to be fun and more profitable, when I finally got my first film role, which was this one, it was very exciting to me. And even though for me, Mannequin might not be the ultimate fantasy romantic comedy that it is for so many, I have come to learn in years since especially since I've had a lot of years as a writer producer in which I work with a lot of people who are younger than me. So people who are 5 to 10 years younger than me, Mannequin holds a much more important place to them. Uh, and also, I was excited because as a small part in a big movie, it's a memorable part, and it's to be able to be the personification of the Deus ex machina, if I may be a little highfalutin, was a very fulfilling thing because it is a memorable moment, and it is the moment that confirms that they're going to live happily ever after. Uh, there's also a cute story about that actual shot of jumping in the garbage, but I'll let's save this gold and spin it a little bit.
Well, you got, I love that, of course, for those who haven't seen the movie, Kim Cattrall is a mannequin, but only one person can see him as is her true form. And I'll bring that up here. Andrew McCarthy can see her in her true form. Of course, Andrew McCarthy plays a character who goes through several jobs before being brought into this storefront and is there to dress the mannequins. And I gotta say, I was that a location or was that a set?
The compactor room
Yeah.
was actually not on the premises of the department store where most of the stuff was shot. It wasn't a sound stage per se, as I remember. And
Uh-huh.
again, it's 35 years ago, so the details are a little sketchy, but I was trying to remember. Uh, I do know that it was a building that I believe had a basement that looked a lot like that. They built the compactor with the ramp and they put some of those things in there. So it wasn't a sound stage. It was in Philadelphia, which is where both of the Mannequin movies were shot. And most of the stuff was shot in Wanamaker's department store. And much like the sequel, in which I had more department store scenes, it shot at night when the store was closed. So those actors had been on nights for weeks and weeks shooting all those scenes as if it were daytime in the department store. But then when we shot the compactor room scene, it was in a slightly separate location where they had that big room for that big ending scene where most of the major characters come in and have their little final denouement, as it were, to get all highfalutin again. But the detail that I also remembered was of that scene, the shot of me diving headfirst into the
Yeah.
garbage, which happens to be, the end before we smash cut to the music video ending. That was the last shot that they shot in Philadelphia. So it was what they call on the set the martini. That's the showbiz term for the last shot of the show. And because it's the last shot, another tradition on many sets is that a lot of the crew puts money into a pool and they pick the time that the show is going to finally wrap. And it's like a lottery on the last day. And because different crew members had, we're going to wrap at 6:48, 6:49, 6:55, whatever time they had picked in the pool, because this brand new kid had that last shot, I had guys whose names I hadn't learned yet coming up to me and saying, hey, if you could screw up the next couple of takes so that we wrap at 6:55 instead of 6:53, I'll make some money and I'll give you a piece of it. So it was just a funny element to the shooting of it that I didn't even know existed as a rather green film actor at the time. And of course, nobody did anything to alter any of the takes, but it was just a fun little extra bit of what was going on for me as an actor at the time.
Well, I love it there. You dive in there, of course, because you're seeing the the mannequin turned into Kim Cattrall and you shut that machine off, and
Go looking for another one.
you go looking for another, you find Carol Davis buried
I
under the
do.
trash.
My first on-screen kiss with the beautiful Carol Davis, who had been a centerfold model as well as a recording artist that recorded with Prince and was doing a lot of exciting stuff back in the 80s. So it was kind of a big deal for young me.
How much did you enjoy doing that kiss scene? Did that? I bet
Uh,
you that one you screwed up more than once.
well, perhaps, but my first on-screen kiss was with this beautiful woman, and her reaction to me kissing her is pushing me off of her. So there's a little bit of poetic justice in that. I had better on-screen kisses after that.
Well, you I like it too. Like you find her under there. Oh, another mannequin. There's a lot of ties to Police Academy with this film because Kim Cattrall was in the first Police Academy, and of course G.W. Bailey was in the first one, and then came back in the fourth one, and was in thereafter, and so there was a lot of Police Academy connection with this film. Um, Great casting in this one. Kim Cattrall, of course, still working. Of course, Sex in the City, Big Trouble in Little China, which she did the year before. She's quite striking, especially in Big Trouble in Little China and this film right here.
She's also currently doing the voiceover, not only voiceover, but on-camera wraparounds for the new How I Met Your Father, which now streams on the Hulu. And just a little plug, I made an appearance in season 1, episode 8 of How I Met Your Father, which just dropped last week.
Did she point the finger and say, "You're the janitor"?
Sadly, we were not on set the same day. I reunited with some other actors that I'd worked with before on that show, but Kim was not a part of shooting the part I want because her stuff's all self-contained.
Well, she had such a festive energy playing, of course, the mannequin and who comes to life. And what do you remember of her and Mannequin?
I remember having some lovely talks with her while that last scene was shooting about the theater. She was someone who, I was still a New York theater guy, and we bonded over that. We knew a couple of the same people, and we talked a lot about theater in New York, which was comforting for me on my first film set, but she was extremely kind to me. And I also had a real nice chat with Andrew, who strangely enough, not strangely, coincidentally enough, I did another acting job in 2020 on a show called Good Girls. And this show, I happened to book this job in February of 2020. And my costume fittings kept getting delayed because of this virus that they thought was growing. And then all of a sudden, Good Girls and every other production in town shut down. So I didn't get to be on Good Girls. But then later, a year later, they called up and said, "Hey, we're going to shoot that episode again. Come on in." And what I didn't know was that the actor in the scene with me was Andrew McCarthy. So when I saw Andrew, I said, "Hey, we know each other from 34 years ago." And when I reminded him of it, we had a nice reminiscence of our time on the set. But at that time, everyone was still staying extremely far apart and remaining extremely masked and shielded on sets. So, but it was a fun Mannequin reunion. We appeared it's a tiny part for me, but it was a fun little scene, and it was fun to catch up with him after all these decades.
Mask or otherwise, how do you keep your distance from Kim Cattrall? I was gonna say that during that climatic scene, um, when she's hanging off there and he's grabbing hold, how much of that was them and how much was that stunt doubles? Or
Probably about if it was a longer shot, it was a stunt double, and then that there, I remember there was one shot kind of from his POV that was her, and I
Hmm.
do remember one thing they had to do was build a little thing for her to support her, but she did a bunch of it. As to an actual percentage, I'd say about 50-50, but that's a 35-year-old memory.
Okay, Well, I mentioned, of course, Police Academy. George W. Bailey. He's so funny as Lieutenant Harris in the
He's a
Police
very
Academy.
funny and a nice guy. He is I don't know him well, but we have encountered each other across a poker table on a handful of occasions in the past 35 years. We have a couple friends in common who occasionally host a card game. And so I have played cards with GW. Uh, and the other,
Does he bring Rambo with him?
no, no, he's not in character when he plays cards.
Could you imagine? Oh, like a names his dog Rambo, and the dog runs the other direction. Oh, I think he's very underrated, very funny. And of course you get James Spader in this movie.
Very young James Spader.
Yeah, what a talent. I remember the line when he gets very snooty with Andrew McCarthy, and Andrew McCarthy's walking by, goes, asshole. He goes, what was that? He goes, nice halls. James Spader, what a talent. He's like a chameleon in a lot of these films. I remember him in Crash for David Cronenberg. Wow. And then you see him in this, he's all nerded up and he's just a stuck-up type. um Talk about working with him. I mean, again, what a talented guy.
He was one of the guys that I got the least amount of uh, time talking to, but I do remember being very impressed with this, what I thought was a young character actor, and then to watch this career of his develop. Really, he's done such an incredible range of stuff, and he's become such a different type with so much gravitas as he ages. And I think he's an excellent actor. And I don't watch the show whose name I'm forgetting that he's on regularly on television, but I know he's developed quite a reputation for it. And he's a very strong actor. The other actor in that group that I was more friendly with was Steve Vinovich, who was the
Oh
sort of
yeah.
nice guy executive. And he too was a New York theater guy, and we have a number of friends in common. And I run into him every now and then out here, and we we're friends over the years.
Oh yeah, he was really good in this, and of course, am I gonna screw this guy's name? Misha
Meshach
Taylor.
Taylor. Meshach
Oh
Taylor,
my
yes, sir.
goodness, what a flamboyant character he was as Hollywood.
And he was so good at it and so funny that they built the sequel around that character. And again, the sequel, not nearly the movie the first one was, but we were the only two actors that had been in the first one that they put in Mannequin 2 on the move.
Hmm.
Sadly, we lost Meshach Taylor at a pretty young age a few years ago, but he, of course, had gone on to do a show called Designing Women on television, and he became very famous for that.
Well,
But
after
he,
playing Hollywood, of course he could design.
yeah, very nice guy, and was always very nice to me on both films, and a tragic loss because he was so young.
Yes. And speaking of lost, we've lost all the Golden Girls.
Estelle
Betty
Getty.
White made it to 99, just missed her 100th birthday by 17 days. But of course, Estelle Getty, the store owner. And I heard she was the youngest of the Golden Girls. How funny
I
is
think,
that?
yeah, right. Yeah, tremendously talented and wonderfully nice woman, as was Cynthia Harris, who was also one of the executives. And she was a good friend of a guy I did a play with in New York. Uh, yeah, this whole getting older thing and people having to pass away, that's sad. But I'm so glad that I was lucky enough to have crossed paths with all of these people.
Yes, absolutely. Now, just a second. I was just trying to think who was the director of Mannequin here. I X'd out of
His
it
name
there.
was Michael Gottlieb.
Michael Gott. Oh yes. I'm gonna sound ignorant here, but was he related to Carl?
I don't believe so, but Carl Gottlieb is one of my favorite people. He's
Well, I've
a,
interviewed Carl.
he's a friend out here. We were introduced through a mutual friend who's a comedy writer, and I had also met Carl not long after Mannequin. I met Carl in the late '80s. I was doing a play in New York about stand-up comedians, and
Okay.
Carl approached me and Paul Provenza, who was playing the other comedian. He's a wonderful comedian and author and director. Uh, about developing he wanted to do a series about an old comedy team, like an undiscovered Laurel and Hardy, as if a whole bunch of silent comedies had been unearthed that no one had seen before. That was his idea. Anyway, I think Carl Gottlieb, and I don't believe he's related to Michael, but I don't know for sure. But I think Carl Gottlieb is, he wrote some of my favorite movies. So.
Here's what comes to life whenever I say, "Hi, Skittles." Skittles, say hello to Andrew Hill Newman.
Skittles, Mike Charles, who is not to be disturbed in his patch of sunlight right now, is also a tuxedo. That's a very, your distant relatives, let's just put it that way, by your coat.
Here you go. Skittles says there's no mannequins coming to life here. At least not that he knows, because he's always asleep until right now. Yeah, how you doing, Skittles? Skittles says, you're exploiting me. You're exploiting me for hits.
Oh
You're
no, you're
exploiting me.
celebrating. That's just play to your strengths right there.
Yes, you're exploiting me for hits and views and likes. I say, Skittles, you're staying here for free, so I'm gonna have to exploit you. You know?
I think we all know who the boss is there.
Yeah, I'm the one out working.
Yeah.
You lazy kitty. You lazy kitty. You lazy.
You look so happy.
Oh, I love my kitty. Yeah, he gets bashful. He'll rub against my finger there. Mannequin 2 on the move. Yeah, I only seen it once.
That's all you need.
Well, what went wrong with Mannequin 2 in your opinion?
Uh, I think that from conception, it was all right. To me, and again, this is a generational thing.
Uh-huh.
Mannequin, to me, the first one, the good one,
Uh-huh.
was clearly, I don't know what motivated it, but to me, it was a movie trying to be splash, which happens to be one of my favorite
Oh, that's a
fantasy
good
romantic
comparison.
comedies.
Yeah.
Sure, well, it's pretty close. Here's a guy with a new job who meets someone that only he can see. That's a
Mm-hmm.
perfect girl, and it's a similar formula. But again, these movies mean more to us depending on the age and person we are when we see them. So I know that for some people, they were the perfect age for Splash, and other people were the perfect age for Mannequin. But Mannequin 2 seemed to me to be a pretty slapdash effort to try and make a pale imitation of the first one, which was, in my eyes, a pale imitation of Splash. However, from a story point of view, now that I've been writing stuff for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
I think that one of the big differences was the amount of fantasy stuff that was included, and there was a lot of sort of time traveling people that didn't make a whole lot of sense in the second one. And I don't think it held up as a story very much. The good part for me was that I had a much bigger part than I did in the first one.
Hmm.
And that was kind of fun. The tough parts were that I was on night shoots for a month, and literally you'd go to work late at night and wrap at 4 or 5 in the morning, and then try to sleep during the day and do that all over again. The other thing was the budget was clearly not as big on the second one as the first one.
Hmm.
As I noticed, the craft service table where all the snacks are laid out for the cast and crew. On the first movie, it was like you expect to see on a movie. And there were nights on the second one where it was just kind of a box of Ritz crackers and an open jar of peanut butter. Was pretty much, so
Wow.
it wasn't quite the first class. I'm not trying, it wasn't like that every night, but it was not quite the same. But again, I was pretty inexperienced with films back then. And the part that excited me as a young actor was that they called me and said, "Hey, we liked your bit as the janitor, so we wrote you a part as the security guard. You've gotten a promotion." And we named the character Andy, which the character didn't have a name in the first one. But
Okay.
then, of course, they made me audition for it 3 times, because that's the way these things go. But I did finally end up getting it, and it was fun, though it was not as successful either artistically or commercially in its box office receipts. But still, as an actor looking to work, I was very happy to be a part of it.
Of course, William Ragsdale was in that. Of course, I love Fright Night. He was in that.
Yeah, Billy Ragsdale, great guy.
Hmm. And of course, the beautiful Christy Swanson, the new
Yes,
Mannequin.
yes, she was quite pretty.
Yeah. And Terry Kaiser, a talented guy.
Very talented, very funny,
Yeah.
indeed.
Yeah.
Stuart Pankin, I'm still friends with, who was in that one as well.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, I want to touch upon you were a Maniac Cop too. You playing of course here at Citizen. I haven't actually I'm not I think I watched Maniac Cop years ago. I'm not as familiar, but I know these have got a cult following. You want to touch upon your role in that?
Sure, that one was fun for me. Uh, I'm not a slasher movie guy, so I was unfamiliar with the franchise.
Okay.
But I got this little part, and the fun thing about this part was I had a little dialogue scene with a guy named Bo Deedle, who was a former private investigator that then became a bit of a Hollywood guy. And he was playing the role of a cop, I think. Though he's not the Maniac Cop. I think he was the guy investigating the Maniac Cop.
Oh
But the
yeah, I
cool
see
thing
him
about
listed here. Yep.
the cool little thing about my part was that I'm a jerky guy that he's got some problem with. I totally forget about what. But then the Maniac Cop comes and attacks and places me. Oh, maybe it's about my car being parked in the wrong place. I'm not sure, because there is a tow truck with the hook on it that takes the cars, and the Maniac Cop hangs me on the hook, and the truck drives away with me dangling dead on the hook of the pickup truck, which I got to do. They had a harness thing, and it was my first time with horror makeup, having been all beat up. So that shot for one night on the west side of Times Square. And that's about all I remember about it, but it sure was fun, even though it wasn't a movie I would go see in a theater.
I love horror films, but I'm not as familiar with these. But how long did it take you in the makeup chair for that?
That one, I think, was only a couple of hours. I've had much longer ones on other things with full prosthetics and
Yeah.
stuff, and That's kind of fun. Though when I did a Star Trek Voyager and I was very disappointed that all they did was kind of put some loops in my hair. I wanted the full deal.
You remember much of director William Lustig, because he did Maniac, of course, with Joe Spinell, and of course he did Maniac Cop 2.
I do remember chatting with him and getting along with him, but I don't believe we had any contact afterwards. But I do remember enjoying chatting with him both at the audition and working with him on set.
Okay. And of course, speaking of people we lost Gene Wilder, and he was, of course, funny about love. I got to ask you about him. He's so brilliant in Young Frankenstein, and
Talking about one of my favorite actors, and Young Frankenstein and the producers, two of my favorite comedies.
yeah, and of course, funny about love. Any stories about that?
I got a great story about that, kind of. It's fun for me. Uh, as a New York actor who wasn't getting a lot of film auditions or parts, I was very excited when I got an audition for Leonard Nimoy, who directed Funny About Love. And having grown up with Star Trek, that was just a chance to meet an idol and an icon of television. So here's I very much remember that I had jury duty in New York that week, down in the Wall Street area. My audition was on my jury duty lunch break. In the Wall Street area of Manhattan, you can't hail a cab. It's too crowded. You can't count on it. So the struggling actor, wages at the time, I hired a car service to meet me downstairs, take me to the audition, and take me back to jury duty, probably costing me 50 or 60 bucks, a lot of money at the time, just to do the audition. I was so excited to just go meet him. So I go, and the car service, I go and I meet Leonard Nimoy and I read the scene with him. And then I'm leaving, and I'm walking out of his office, and I hear Andrew, and it was Spock. I heard it was just his voice. It wasn't this guy in a shirt sitting behind a desk, just the disembodied voice calling my name, because it was just the voice. It was Mr. Spock calling me back into the room. I was so excited. I walked back in, and he's looking at my resume, and he asked me when I was in Little Shop of Horrors, which is a musical I did in New York. And I told him, and he said, "Oh, I think we saw you." And we start talking about the play. And anyway, then Leonard Nimoy cast me in this. It was one day on this movie, a fertility comedy, where Gene Wilder and Christine Lottie are playing a couple of a certain age who are trying to get pregnant, even though they're a little old for that. And it was a very funny little scene, but it was one day, but I was going to get to meet Gene Wilder, an idol.
Mm-hmm.
And then, as luck would have it, I get offered another movie that shoots on the exact same day on the opposite end of the country. And it's with another idol of mine. It's in the movie L.A. Story with Steve Martin, directed.
Oh.
And you got to understand, Steve Martin and Gene Wilder, for me, this is like, oh my God, and it's just one day on either one. And I'm like, what do I do? And I'm looking at it, and here's how I made the decision. The scene in the Gene Wilder movie was just me and Gene Wilder. And the scene in LA Story was me as a waiter, and Steve Martin and a bunch of the other stars of the movie were eating in this scene. And so I thought, ooh, hanging out there that day on the Gene Wilder movie, I'll get a chance to talk to Gene Wilder. But if I go do LA Story, I might just be the guy off in the corner, and I'll never even get to say hello to Steve Martin. So wonderful problem to have, but I chose to do the Gene Wilder movie, and I had a beautiful day.
Good choice. I thank you for that. I mean, as fun as LA Story might have been, if you're one-on-one with Gene Wilder, but you can't go wrong there.
I'm very happy. We did get to talk a lot during that day, and he said some very nice things about my work and the little bit. You want to hear what the joke was in the scene? It's kind of funny.
Go for it, yeah.
In the scene was one because, as I told you, they're an older couple trying to get pregnant. So he was at the sperm bank, and he needed to make a deposit, and so he's in the room where he's supposed to do his business, and he takes a couple of magazines out of the folder that's on the door of the room, and he's starting to lay them out to look at the magazines. And then me, in a lab coat, as someone who works there, I open the door and reach into the folder of where the magazines were, not finding what I'm looking for. And then I point at the one he's using and I say, "Oh, is that the July issue?" Because clearly I was looking for it for my own needs.
I remember this scene, yep.
And so that was the bit, and it was that brief. I think it probably took longer for me to describe it than it did in the movie, but for that, I got to hang out with an idol all day and talk about the producers and Young Frankenstein and Gilda, which he loved to talk about. And so yes, I had that Sophie's choice of acting opportunities, and that's the way I chose.
I'm going to agree with Mel Brooks. How Gene Wilder didn't get an Academy Award nomination for Best Actor for Young Frankenstein, I'll never know. Because he was brilliant,
Yep.
Yep. That and
Willy
Wonka, he was terrific in these, But yeah, I guess he was going to. You either had to go with something else or see if he'd let go of that issue. I love the jaywalking scene you had in Lethal Weapon 3.
There's a good story about that one too.
Go for it.
And this story will involve a little bit of off-color language.
That's okay. You go for it.
But this is how that happened. And again, I seem to preface all these stories with, as an actor who wasn't getting a lot of film auditions, and even after I had moved here to LA, I was doing a lot of television, but not a lot of movies. And then one day on a Saturday, I got a call from my manager saying, "Hey, I got you this very last minute audition for Richard Donner, who was the director of Lethal Weapon 3.
Great director of a lot of great films, yeah.
Yeah, people we lost recently. That's sad. But so when I got this call, I was on my way to do something I do a lot, which is I play disc golf. I don't know if it's hit New Brunswick, Canada yet, but I play a lot of disc golf, which is a golf game that you play with Frisbees, basically, and it's a hobby of mine.
Okay.
And so I'm wearing shorts and a t-shirt, and I'm headed out to this thing, and my manager says, "Get over to Warner Brothers because they'll see you right now, and it shoots next week, and they can't find anybody." And it's for a scene of a jaywalker. Now I have to tell you that when we moved to Los Angeles from New York, my wife constantly warned me that I could not cross the streets like I did in New York because you'll get a ticket out here. And I laughed it off like any stupid, cocky New Yorker would. And then sure enough, within my first 6 months here, I was walking across the street to do a voiceover that I was a little late for. And I walked across the middle of the street and cop pulled me over and wrote me a ticket for jaywalking. And I paid the 60 or 80 bucks or whatever it
Oh,
was.
wow.
And I saved the ticket because I thought it was ridiculous. I just thought it was an empty street that I was crossing. But my wife was right, as she usually is. Uh, but so I knew I had this jaywalking ticket in the same folder where I kept that extra picture and resume that an actor always has in case this last minute audition comes up. And then I go to the Warner Brothers lot and it's kind of empty because it's a Saturday. And I'm trying to find Richard Donner's office and I can't find it. And suddenly I look up in a parking lot and I'm standing in front of an incredibly handsome man that is Mel Gibson. He just happened to be there. And I hadn't seen a lot of movie stars 2 inches away, but I was like, oh, hey, you know where Richard Donner's office is? I'm looking for it. And he's like, oh, so he points me to where the entrance is to the office, and I go, and I'm sitting in Richard Donner's outer office and waiting to go in, and I hear him inside the office. That son of a bitch won't let me over. He's cursing a blue streak at somebody on the phone trying to get something he wants, but it sounds like New York music to me. I totally get the way he's talking, and he wasn't really angry as much as he was being super emphatic. But boy, was he cursing a blue streak and keeping me waiting about 10 or 15 minutes. And then finally I get called in. And as I walk into his office, he shouts out to his secretary, "Where's his resume?" And I said, "Fuck the resume. Here's my ticket." And I handed him my jaywalking ticket that I had gotten. And he laughed and laughed and laughed. And then he asked for my resume. And then he asked for me to tell him the story of my jaywalking. And then he told me that they had the scene, but there wasn't much written for it. So it was going to be largely improvised. And so he asked me to do an improv with him, which I did. And I got the call that I got the job before I made it to the disc golf course. I heard about 20 minutes after I left his office. And then we shot it the next week in downtown LA, almost entirely improvised. And I'm proud to say that I pitched the joke that I run back into the street at the end of the scene. If you look at the little jaywalker clip there, they've been busted down to uniform officers because they let the building blow up in the cold open of the movie, and they don't know how to do the stuff that beat cops do. So when they see a jaywalker, they're not even sure how to write the ticket. And then they finally let me go, and I run back into the street, and then they scream at me again. So I was very pleased that I pitched a joke on the set that they all liked. And that was probably a much longer story than you were expecting for
No,
that
that's
tiny scene.
okay.
But
There's no time limit here. It's just I thought the scene was very, very funny. Um, I like it. Your character does kind of get off get off with it, so you have to run, but I
yeah,
mean,
the other good thing about that scene for me was that it was the scene that both Danny Glover and Mel Gibson took on talk shows when they did the promotional circuit for the movie. So when they go, oh, we got a clip of Lethal Weapon 3, they would show my scene. And so a lot of my relatives who wouldn't necessarily go see a Lethal Weapon movie, but would watch The Tonight Show or whatever other talk show they were plugging the movie on, I got some good exposure to my far-flung relatives that way.
and what exposure. You're on there with Mel Gibson and Danny Glover. You can't go wrong there.
Yeah, it was a rather iconic franchise in its day.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, but yeah, Lethal Weapon 3, of course, Mel Gibson. That all that was like I've heard Weird Al Yankovic say that he admires people who can improvise. He said he could not do it, but doing it on the spot, like that's a skill. I don't even think I could master it, but That
It's it's tough, and I find it as an audience member, I find it very inconsistent as live entertainment. But as an acting exercise, I find it extremely valuable. The good news on a film like Lethal Weapon 3, where they've got a lot of money and time is not quite as value. Well, time is always valuable on any set, but there was a little bit of time and money to investigate what would be the funniest way to do it. Then, of course, it wasn't made up every time. You make it up in rehearsal until you find the version you like, and then you do it that way.
okay. I got a few other films I'll add to you, but Fools Rush In, Assorted Cheeses. I saw that in the theater when that came out. With Matthew Perry, Selma Hayek, remember Suzanne Snyder, she's gorgeous. You have any stories about that one?
I got nothing but stories about Fools Rush In. At the time, Matthew Perry and I were writing partners.
Okay.
I met Matthew in a card game before he was on Friends, when he was just another actor like the rest of us. And we became very close friends, and we started writing stuff together. The first thing we wrote together was a TV pilot that was being developed the same season that Friends was. It was another season, and I'm sure if you've seen any of the Matthew stories, he had done another pilot called LAX 2194 with Ryan Stiles. So they didn't know if he was going to be available for Friends. But anyway, we had written a pilot, and then we wrote a couple other things after that, a couple of movies. And then once Matthew got on Friends, and then he got into Fools Rush In, they knew we were writers, and they said, hey, do you want to take a pass at the script? So Matthew and I did a punch-up pass on Fools Rush In and put in a whole bunch of jokes that Andy Tennant, the director, and his partner Rick Parks, they liked our jokes a whole lot, and they kept all of them. I also am very proud in Fools Rush In of rewriting the proposal scene where Matthew proposes to Selma Hayek on top of the dam. And he says to her, you are everything I never knew I always wanted. Because they're people who had a one-night stand and then decide to get married, even though they're from these vastly different worlds. So it needed a romantic thing, and I was very proud of that. And they gave me a gift, Andy and Rick, of that line framed, which I keep in another office that I'm very proud of. So we wrote a lot of jokes, but I also wrote a lovely romantic line for that movie that I'm very proud of.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I had a fun time. The little thing I'm billed as Assorted Cheeses, there's one scene in which Matthew is, I think, first arriving there, and he goes to a big party. I think he's carrying a fish. He might be carrying something. Anyway, we have a brief, and I'm basically an extra, but we gave me the name of Assorted Cheeses because it made us laugh.
And of course, Loser I saw in the theater. I like Amy Heckerling. She directed one of my favorite movies, Fast Times at Ridgemont High. And of course, Loser cast two of the American Pie people, Jason Biggs and Mina Savari. Talk about working with Amy Heckerling as a director and working with those two individuals.
I don't think I ever worked with Amy Heckerling as a director.
You're credited in Loser as the dealer.
I'm in The Grand as the dealer. I don't know what Loser is.
Oh, wow. I am sorry. This is listed as
I'm looking it up to see what they got.
oh wow, they got Loser listed here, but I mean, yeah, The Grand by Zach Penn. Oh wow, I am sorry. Woody Harrelson, David Cross, Dennis Farina. You know what? They had it listed as Loser, and I think it was the same year that the Heckerling movie came out.
That's interesting. Well, I'm unfamiliar with that one, but the speaking of improv, the Grand was a completely improvised poker movie that
Uh-huh.
Zach Penn put together with an incredible list of actors. And not only did I play the dealer, but I was also the poker coordinator, advisor, because I play a lot of poker and I produced a poker show for a while, so I know a lot about poker.
I'm sorry about that mistake there, but I mean, Dennis Farina is gone, and there's a talented guy, you know.
Wow, not only a talented guy, but I have to say that uh, of all the actors I've ever been around and spent time with, the one actor that has had the most visible effect on members of the opposite sex when they just see him was Dennis Farina. No doubt. We were in Vegas for 6 weeks and we'd eat a lot of meals together, and you would see women just stop in their tracks and shudder. And I mean, I spent a lot of time with Matthew when he was really famous for Friends, and yeah, girls liked him, but nothing compared with the undeniable sex symbol that was Dennis Farina. Oh my God, it was really entertaining to watch, and couldn't have been a nicer guy for a guy who's played a lot of tough guys and a lot of cops and a lot of, he's been in some of my favorite movies. Midnight Run is one of the, I think, greatest buddy comedies of all time.
I interviewed Alan Ford from the movie Snatch, and Dennis Farina is also in that. And Alan Ford said, Dennis Farina and I were the oldest ones in the movie, and we had the best hair.
He did have great hair, a silver fox to be sure.
They were both silver foxes, and yeah, they said we're the oldest, we had the best hair, you know. In terms of your television, you've done a lot of television. Which do you prefer, doing movies or television?
To be honest with you, my answer is none of the above. Theater. I
Oh,
really,
theater. Oh, wow.
I'm one of these, and it's a little bit of a cliche, but you know, I did a lot of acting in the theater in New York in the 1980s. And then I moved out here and I started doing a lot of TV. And it was, and a couple of small roles in films. But for someone who's trained in the theater and comes up doing 8 shows a week and getting laughs when you say something, as opposed to wondering if it's going to come out funny in the end, I I prefer everything about the theater except the pay. But in terms of the experience of doing it, and honestly, when I started writing, at first I
Hmm.
started writing with Matthew, um, just as something to do on the side. And then I got invited into some writers' rooms to help punch up some pilots and things. And it was in the writers' room that I found what I was missing of the type of acting I was doing in New York. There's something much more collaborative, and there's more, I don't want to sound too haughty about this, but there's more artistic discovery of doing something live, and whether it fails or succeeds. And in the writer's room, trying to come up with the best story idea, the funniest joke. It was in that dynamic that I was like, oh, I like this. And so that's why I started pursuing the writing more. And I was lucky enough to get into a bunch of comedy rooms. And I did a lot of writing for Nickelodeon. And the first one I did, I thought would be a summer job that I wouldn't tell anybody about. But it turned out to be so much fun and so gratifying that I did something like 7 or 8 shows in the writer's room for Nickelodeon after that, because I loved it. And I'll tell anybody how proud I am of it. I do, what of your original question about preferring TV or film, when I got to do TV sitcoms that shot in front of a live audience.
Mhm.
That was the closest to doing a little play once a week.
Okay.
And I suppose that I would pick that. So like Murphy Brown and Night Court and a whole bunch of other shows that you would rehearse all week. And then on Friday night, they'd bring the audience in and you'd shoot it in front of the audience and get your laughs. Those were the ones I liked the best.
I love Night Court. We lost Marky Post. What a beautiful woman, you know. Like she was in There's Something About Mary with Cameron Diaz, and I'm like, she's supposed to be Cameron Diaz's mom, but they could be sisters.
Yeah, she was not only beautiful, but really friendly. And also we lost Harry Anderson. And
Yeah.
I did two Night Courts as two different characters on different seasons, but on the first one, I talked to Harry a lot and we bonded a lot. And this was early, very early 90s, like maybe 90 or 91.
Hmm.
Um, we bonded a lot over Macintosh computers and magic and juggling and street performing, because I had done a lot of juggling and street performing in college, and he had come from a history of busking and doing magic and stuff. And we also were both early Macintosh guys, and computers weren't as omnipresent as they are now. So it was kind of a funner little club to be a part of. And that was one of my favorite memories because I had a large awareness of who Harry Anderson was. And that was a great guy to meet.
I gotta say, some of my greatest memories of Night Court was John Larroquette. I thought he was so hilarious as Dan Fielding. So hilarious, and it just carried over from the movie Blind Date he did with for Blake Edwards. You know, I mean, such a funny movie, and he was so funny in it. Well, of your television, what are the pick two or three that because you've done a lot of TV. What stands out to you that you're I shouldn't say your most proudest, but stuff you get the most interesting stories to say about?
Um, let's see. You brought up the scene from N.Y.P.D. Blue, in which I get beat up by a couple of detectives in the interrogation room because I'm playing an awful pedophile.
Hmm.
Uh, and that one has not only a funny story about it, but I also was very proud of the acting. Uh, so here's my N.Y.P.D. Blue story.
Hmm.
It was a very prestigious show to be a part of, and the casting director, Junie Lowry Johnson, was one of the tougher casting directors to get on her good side, but she'd had me in a few times for a couple of different shows, including other episodes of NYPD Blue. But the way NYPD Blue worked, because of the way the genius creator of that show, David Milch, would write the scripts, he wouldn't write them until a few hours before they were going to shoot them. So when I auditioned 2 weeks before it shot, it was with a script of an episode that they'd already made. It was a different pedophile from an older one. But they said, oh, they'll be able to see what they want. But then they say, oh, you got the job, but you don't know what the job is. And so I had to be there on a Monday. And I think I got the scene sent to me at 2 a.m. Sunday night. So it was brand new, never had seen it before when I got there. The funny part of the story is that the call was remarkably early, 6 a.m. or something, and I'm standing at the craft service table having some coffee, talking to a couple of the crew members that are around, when Jimmy Smits walks in and he grabs his coffee and then he looks at me and says, oh, you must be the pedophile. And I, of course, at first was like, Jesus Christ, I'm wearing my own clothes. Do I really look like that kind of a creep? And then I realized that he put it together because I was the only person there that he didn't know. And the only other actor on the call sheet was the pedophile. So I assuaged my ego by saying he did it because he figured it out by process of elimination, not because I just look like a sexual predator. Um, but then to get to the part that was fulfilling as an actor, the episode was directed by an Emmy Award winning fantastic director named Paris Barkley. And David Milch, the writer and executive producer of the show, was on the set, and he came in with the script, and I got more information about this character that I'd only read a couple hours before in his 15 minutes of just saying, well, here's what the guy, and he's going into the backstory of when this guy was a kid and what his mom did. And it was just so much information that usually on TV you get, do it faster and try to be funnier on the other part, whatever. This was like honest to God direction that you could play as an actor. And it felt unlike what I was telling you I wasn't liking about TV acting. That was one of the few where I really felt like, even without an audience, it felt like the kind of acting that I got to do in New York. And I will say that on one of the takes, when I looked up and David Milch gave me one of these afterwards, that was just so gratifying as a young actor to go, ooh, this was a big challenge. And he gave me a lot of stuff and he liked it. And he's a writer that I respected so much. So that one is, I think, one I would pick if I had to say, which one do you like your acting the most in? The ones that I thought were the most fun to do were the real make-believe ones. Like I think I told you earlier, I got to do a Star Trek Voyager. I also did a few episodes of a short-lived Richard Dean Anderson show called Legend, and that shot out in Tucson, Arizona in an old West town, and it was a period Western. So it was real, cowboys and Indians type dress up, make-believe little kid acting, in that way.
I need to go back here for a minute, because I don't watch television. I know N.Y.P.D. Blue is, I'm very familiar, but where I don't watch television, like I said, my TV just set up to watch my Blu-rays and whatnot. But so I'm going to sound very ignorant here for fans of the show, but who were the two actresses that were smacking you around in that scene? And what was it like doing that scene with them?
It was great. They were nice. I'm going to be really bad because it was so many years ago and forget their names, but I'm going to tell you right now.
They're going to smack you again.
Yeah, no, because they're big TV stars, and I absolutely should remember that it was Kim Delaney
Okay.
and Kim Delaney, and who was the other one? Oh man. Well, it's there in the world of the internet, but they were wonderful actresses. And their boss, who comes in and takes his watch off like he's going to really beat the crap out of me at the end. That was, it's a really good little scene, but it's a scene from a billion years ago. So
Now,
your viewers will be just as mad at me for not remembering. But I think I've been coming up with a lot of names so far.
well, now I don't know how this is all done, but when they did that, did they actually hit you, or was that
No,
okay?
you know what? They might have hit me on one of them, but the most violent slap is one with the back of her hand
Oh
across,
yeah.
and it's over her shoulder. So if you look at it, her hand comes in front of my cheek, but they put in the sound, and
Oh, okay.
expertly turn my head at just the right time. So no, I didn't get beat up, but I have had a lot of experience, both good and bad, with stage combat in both the theater and in television, having been beat up and delivered a few punches. And it's always tough. And once on stage in a play with the aforementioned Paul Provenza, we were playing comedians in this play called Only Kidding. And I had a slap that I had to slap him every night. And he said, just slap me. You know, it was this scene where he was really wigging out. And so I would just slap him. And then one night, the edge of my heel of my hand caught his jaw, dislocated his jaw. That wasn't good. So we changed the slap after that to be something much safer.
Yeah, probably. Any other television that stands out to you that you want to touch upon?
You know, not particularly. I will say that I had a really good time when I was writing on a Nickelodeon show.
Mm-hmm.
The first one I did was a sketch show
Mm-hmm.
for a young actress named Amanda Bynes, and it was called The
Oh,
Amanda
Amanda.
Show.
Yeah.
And on that show, I was writing sketches,
Mm-hmm.
and I also acted in a whole bunch of the sketches. So it was really fun to be able to sit in my office and think of funny sketches and then write a part for myself. And then I do that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and I go downstairs on Thursday and rehearse with them and come up and write some more and then go shoot it. And that too shot in front of a live audience of kids that we brought in. So it was really fulfilling to be able to think of funny stuff and then go downstairs and shoot it. That was a hoot.
I like Amanda Bynes. I don't know what had happened to her, but I remembered you just as perky, very funny young woman, and loved her in Easy A with Emma Stone. That was quite a different role for her. But I don't know what happened to her after that. I've seen the clips and the news, and it's just baffling what happened there. But what were your memories and experience working with Amanda?
I remember such a talented, funny, wanting to learn. We would talk a lot about the sketches that I grew up with, the Carol Burnett Show, the Smothers Brothers, the Laugh-In. I also used to talk to that cast a lot about The Honeymooners, which is an old television show that I'm a very large fan of.
Jackie Gleason.
Come on. And what was wonderful about Amanda was that she got all of these references and she did her homework and she studied the way other people would make these incredibly whole comic characters. And so she wasn't just doing voices or screwing up her face. She understood the soul of a clown, and that's an amazing thing. I thought that Josh Peck had a lot of the exact same thing, and he was a kid on the Amanda Show as well and has grown up to be a fine adult actor. As to what problems she ran into years later, I don't know either. And I just hope she's happy now and I hope she's doing well. But I do know that I was always incredibly impressed, not only with her professionalism and her ability to deliver, but also her qualities as a 14-year-old girl, just being a kid. And that's a thing you run into when you work a lot at Nickelodeon is some kids are great performers, but you want to go, hey, go hang out with your friends and have some life. And she seemed anyway to have a really good balance of that. And that was something I was very grateful for.
Yeah, I think the last thing, I don't have her IMDb right up here, but I think the last thing she did was Easy A. with Emma Stone. I'm a huge Emma Stone fan, so it was pretty cool seeing Amanda. Like I say, it's so sad that whatever happened with her, because in Easy A she was playing against that. She was playing
Hmm.
the snobby girl, and I gotta wonder what would have happened with her, you know. So best wishes to her, you know.
Indeed.
Yep, but she was definitely a talent, you know. Yeah. What you got coming up in the future that you could talk about?
Well, I'm writing a couple of things for me.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I'm I'm like everybody else, sort of just beginning to reemerge from the
Yeah.
past couple of years. I'm not really. I've been auditioning a little bit, and I am looking forward to uh, indulging my hobbies in my semi-retirement.
Retirement.
I, it's not that I'm stopping working, it's just that I'm coming to the realization that I'm getting to be a certain age and I might not
Oh,
be
oh,
as.
come on, you're 39. Come
Yes,
on.
thank you for bringing that up again. No, it's all good. I don't know what's next, and it's not like I am here to plug anything. I'm thrilled to be chosen to talk about Mannequin. I've never been the person that they said, "Oh, let's do a Mannequin interview with that guy," and that's fun. I have talked about a few other things, but it was a pleasure to talk to you about it, and I don't know. That's the fun thing about this life in show business is I maybe I'll be writing something new next year. Maybe I'll be acting on something. Maybe I'll be playing disc golf. Who
but,
knows?
but here's the thing. It's not a matter of you know, you talking about Mannequin, it's that you had a standout, even though it was a small part. You had you had a part that I remember, you know, because I don't have Mannequin here on Blu-ray. I don't even know if it's on Blu-ray yet. Is it on Blu-ray yet?
I don't know. I know I have it on a DVD somewhere, but
Yeah.
I don't know if it's Blu-ray. By the
See,
way,
I
here's the age
remember you.
difference.
Oh, you haven't changed at all. Look at that. You're still the same. Oh, come on. You're just wearing glasses in that scene, you know. You got that. Yeah, see, you got some hair coloring in your hair. You haven't changed at all. Like, you're not fooling me at all.
Yeah, it's just I used to have more hair.
There you go. Well, I used to have more hair too.
I understand. You're a
Yeah.
young man, sir.
Well, you know what? If Stone Cold Steve Austin can make bald look cool, then you know what? Hey, you know. But I was gonna say, the janitor, do you think he'd be retired by now, or do you think he's still sweeping that store basement?
Well, a lot of people don't count the future of Mannequin 2 on the Move, but he was promoted to security guard in that sequel. Even though he wasn't allowed to carry a weapon, he had to carry a can of hairspray because they wouldn't even let him have mace. Whether I think his career may not have gone up from there. And if there were a new sequel about the janitor, I think he might be doing something else.
You think he might find the mannequin?
Maybe that would be a good movie, huh?
I wonder who'd be the mannequin now. We've had Kim Cattrall, we've had Christy Swanson.
I don't know who the really pretty young thing of the day is,
Oh,
but
I think Emma Stone's a pretty young thing.
yeah,
You worked in Zoe 101. I mean, Jane Levy.
okay.
Yeah, I like Jane Levy. You know, she was in Don't Breathe, so there's another upcoming talent.
Ironically, when I played Einstein on Zoe 101, my scene was with Miranda Cosgrove, I think, who was doing a
Okay.
crossover before I was writing for her on iCarly, but
Hmm.
it's all connected through the Nickelodeon of it all.
Oh, there you go. Do you have any charities that you want to plug and promote on here that you're passionate about?
I think anything we can do to support the poor people of the Ukraine these days is where I would focus my charitable energies right now. That's just a thing that I hope the world can help put down as quickly and as peacefully as possible. I don't have a specific charity in that regard to name, but I do know that there are plenty of very, very needy ones out there, including Doctors Without Borders and everybody else. And I even know a lot of people that are renting Airbnbs from homes in Ukraine with no intention to stay there, just to try and get some cash to the people who live there. So anything and everything that can be done for them is what I would recommend right now. Other than that, I'm always a supporter of the Actors Fund, which is a wonderful charity that supports people in all corners of show business. But I think right now we've got more of an international priority.
Well, you know what? It's funny because you played that janitor 35 years ago in that movie. My pay job, I work as a cleaner. That's what I do. I worked all through the pandemic, and I work in janitorial. Haven't found any mannequins yet, mind you.
I will tell you that, first of all, thank you for honestly, really and truly, thank you for that work. And especially thank you for that work during that time when everybody was so concerned about how clean everything was. And I will also tell you that I too have had that job. I was an assistant in the janitorial staff in the town hall where I grew up. And I was I did that for about 6 months, and I understand the job and how much people value it. So I thank you for keeping it up during the pandemic, and I hope that where you are in New Brunswick, things aren't too bad anymore.
We're clearing up. We did get a jump on the pandemic, I'll say that, because I was back in the movie theater in July 2020.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Not
still
everybody.
haven't been back in a theater.
Yeah, well, us, it was up and down, up and down. There were times everything closed. I was constantly working, but I still like going to the movie theater. I try to go
Me too.
once a week. So social distance or not, I would go there if they had assigned seating, fine. I like to get in there and just get lost in a movie once a week, and but I just got a new job as a cleaner at the hospital, so it's gonna be better money, which is gonna be nice.
Congratulations.
Hmm. I'm looking forward to that. I need it. I need it. But I was glad to have you on here today and celebrate Mannequin's 35th anniversary. A magical little movie. I love the soundtrack to it as well, the look of the film. Um, yeah, it's just the looks of the sets that were put together, and of course Kim Cattrall's character was responsible for all of that. Andrew McCarthy was just happened to be asleep. Love that scene where he wakes up there and you got the bum on the other side of the glass there. Oh, funny stuff. Well, you know what, Andrew? It was so wonderful having you come on here today and talk to me, and reminisce on your career. And yeah, you had a small, but you had a very notable role in Mannequin. We all
Well,
remember.
thanks.
You.
Thanks very much. I appreciate what you do, not only for your pay job, but also this job. in the early days, in the early 2000s, I made a game show on the internet, a web show, because we didn't call them podcasts yet.
Mhm.
And I understand the struggle of approaching people to be guests and what it takes even to do a small interview show like this. So I totally respect that and I appreciate it. And I was flattered to be asked. And I'm glad if this was a good interview for you, because I had a good time.
I had a great time chatting with you. And I'll report to Mother that the janitor from Mannequin, one of her favorites, was a very good interview.
Oh, shucks. Please give her my best and please stay well and safe and enjoy your movies, man. I can't wait to get back into a theater.
Well, you know what? Hopefully it is getting there. I'm hoping it's getting there. So
Yeah, we've had a bit of a tougher time here in California getting our numbers down, but knock wood, it's getting good these days. So maybe something to be optimistic about in that regard.
well, I've had 2 shots. I didn't have the booster. I never had any after effects from it. In fact, when I got my second shot, uh, I had to get a new car because my old car stalled going down a busy street. I was just lucky to get pulled into a parking lot,
Ooh,
but I had to get a new car for work, and I was like, I didn't have time to be sick or anything like that. But it didn't affect me, and I haven't gotten the booster. I haven't been asked, and so far so good, so
well, you know me, I would advise to get it when you get the chance. It gave me just another level of security. But I do know that people are doing better now. And so I wish you nothing but good health, sir.
well, I'm not anti-vax, I get my flu shot every year. It's just that um no, I had the 2 shots. I just didn't feel the need for the booster, you know, but I mean, if I was told I had to get it, then I guess I would have to get it, but I'm not
Sure.
anti-vaccine.
Yeah, I had no adverse reactions to any of them except
Mhm,
for a sore arm for a few hours, and that
mhm.
went away.
There you go.
Yeah.
Do you think it would affect Kim Cattrall's ability to be a mannequin?
I'm not sure if they've studied that, because they need long range studies. And they would need the janitor to be there to make sure that she's really alive and responsive. So they haven't contacted me yet.
Well, Carol Davis, she doesn't need to have a vaccine. You just have to kiss her awake. That was your Snow White moment.
Yeah, exactly. Except I was Prince Uncharming.
Oh, come on. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for allowing me the honor today. This was a lot of fun, and you were a wonderful guest today, and celebrating 35 years of Mannequin, of course.
Here's to Mannequin. Thank you very much. And I wish you the best with your show, sir.
Thank you so much, and stay safe out there, and God bless you.
Thank you.
Before I let you go, I forgot this. Would you mind doing a plug for my show?
No, how shall I do that?
Just state your name
Yeah.
and say that we're celebrating 35 years of Mannequin.
Yep.
Say you're listening to Greg Gilbert on Python's Paradise.
You got it.
Go for it.
Hi, I'm Andrew Hill Newman. You are listening to Greg Gilbert on Python's Paradise, and we are celebrating the 35th anniversary of the release of the film Mannequin.
Mannequin, absolutely. And we have the janitor did that dive into that pile. Do you still do that?
I don't dive into garbage now. I pretty much just carry it out to the bin and put it where it goes.
Does the cats dive into the garbage?
The cats would. The cats would dive into anything. And I think you know that.
Oh, yeah. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for coming on here today. This is splendid. This was an honor. And when this is ready, I'll send you the link and you can put it up wherever you want to. When you get it,
Absolutely.
yeah, when you get it, it'll probably be unlisted. It won't go public for a bit, but you'll be still allowed to put it wherever you want to,
Great.
Yeah, I was always taught don't put stuff public right away, With the pandemic, when the station closed, I was glad I had that backlog of unreleased stuff. So that's why I do that. But you'll be able to put it up right away when I send you the link.
Well, thanks very much. And again, it's a world I'm a little unfamiliar with in the current situation, but I am thrilled and I'm happy for you, and I can't wait to see it. And thanks for asking.
It was my pleasure and honor. You take care. God bless.
You too, man.
Bye bye.